I made two decisions in my life as a young person that changed it forever. First was enrolling at West Point and being lucky enough to get in. And the second one happened at West Point as well. It's where I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And we are particularly great because our founding principles, the things that makes this nation unique, are tied to fundamental Judeo-Christian truths that you all know and are living out. And it's for this reason that our country will always be under assault by dark forces that seek to tear us down. We can see this. You all are going to come into a world where Russia and China and Iran, they're all eager to chip away at our Judeo-Christian founding. They want to see an America in decline. They want to destroy the very freedoms that we are celebrating here today. And they want to drive our nation away from the Lord. We can never let that happen.
This is my video update on this Friday morning, May the 17th. Let's talk about some news and let's talk about the hug. Even Putin was taken aback by the fact that Xi Jinping wanted to give him a hug. A very uncommon thing to see, which shows you just how comfortable and how much of a friend Xi Jinping considers Putin. Now, hugs are common if Elensky is around. If Elensky is around, hugs are very common. But even Elensky, wearing Elensky number 5, cannot get a hug from Xi Jinping. Podolyak, what this I see? Xi Jinping hug Putin? How this be? How this be, Podolyak? I'd wear Elensky number 5, and Xi Jinping does not hug me. Something not good, Podolyak. Maybe we need to change formula of Elensky number 5. Maybe go to Elensky number 6, make it more powerful. So next time I meet with Xi Jinping, he give me big hug. From Li Zejin, 2 points worth noting. Xi hugged Putin for a goodbye. The first time I've ever seen this. Neither of them was wearing a tie. These only happen between people who are very, very, very close. Yes, that is 3 verys. Very, very, very close. The hug. The hug. That's what it will be known as. Even Putin was like, whoa, whoa, what's going on here? Oh, boy. So there was a lot more going on than just a hug in the meetings between Russia and China. We got a long, detailed, incredible joint statement that was issued by China in the Chinese language, but it has been translated and summarized by Arnaud Bertrand, and I will put a link to his Twitter post where he summarizes this very lengthy, very important joint statement that was issued. As of the time of this recording, I have not found an official English translation coming from the Chinese government, but I believe that Arnaud Bertrand does an amazing job, not only translating what was said in this joint statement, but summarizing the key points. Wow, China and Russia issued an extraordinary joint statement yesterday with almost 8,000 words when translated into English, and in many ways more important than the famous No Limits Partnership statement in February 2022. So let me just pull up his Twitter post, which is very long, where he summarizes and translates this joint statement. Once again, I'll put a link for this in the description box down below, but let me read you the bullet points, the key points. Building a new world order. They talk about an order with no neocolonialism and hegemonism of any kind. They do say in this statement, China and Russia, that the order will be based on the UN Charter. You know, Alexander has said this many times on the Duran, that Russia and China will usher in the multipolar world within the UN Charter, instead of trying to build, at least for now, instead of trying to recreate or rebuild a United Nations, which would be a huge endeavor. What China and what Russia will do is they will try to bring in the multipolar world from within the existing United Nations. So they say that in this joint statement. The statement condemns the United States, an extremely strong condemnation of the U.S. It goes into detail about the unipolar world and the current hegemon. It talks about an enormous expansion of China-Russia collaboration. It talks about military cooperation between Russia and China, more trade, mutual investments to help economic development, cooperation on energy, promote each other's currencies and financial infrastructure. That means trade outside of the current system and outside of the USD. Deep education and scientific cooperation, very important. Cooperation in the media and shaping public opinions. The one area where the collective West, where the United States is clearly dominant, is in the information space. So the joint statement talks about a cooperation in media and a cooperation within global institutions. I just talked about that. It also mentions supporting the role of the World Health Organization. That's going to make many people suspicious and unhappy, but the joint statement does say that. Deepen bilateral cooperation at the UN General Assembly, at the Security Council, supporting the WHO, and strengthening cooperation within the WTO framework. It also talks about strengthening BRICS, strengthening the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, etc. And that's the summary. Great job from Arnaud. And once again, I will put a link for the summary in the description box down below. There is also a section in this joint statement which does address the conflict in Ukraine, and it basically says that China and Russia agree to try and resolve the conflict in Ukraine, to try and bring the war to an end, to a settlement, but it has to be based on addressing the root causes of the conflict in Ukraine. And that's important, to the addressing of the root causes, because we all know what the root causes of the conflict in Ukraine were, which is basically Ukraine staying out of NATO, being neutral, creating a new security architecture in Europe, an architecture which does not encroach towards Russia or threaten Russia's national security. And if those root causes are addressed, then they can bring the conflict in Ukraine to an end. Russia and China can work with the collective West to bring the conflict in Ukraine to an end, but those root causes have to be addressed. They will never be addressed. at least not in a diplomatic format. They will have to be addressed on the battlefield because the United States and NATO, they have said many times that they will not discuss a new security architecture in Europe. That's not up for discussion, and they will never be told by any country outside of NATO how NATO should expand or grow. So they're on record saying these things. They will not be told whether a country can join NATO or cannot join NATO. So the root causes, addressing the root causes, will not happen. But that is the way to wind down this conflict, according to this joint statement issued by China and Russia. So let's now talk about what's happening in Ukraine, and let's talk about Elensky in Kharkov. Elensky decided to take a selfie, as he always does when he visits towns, villages, cities outside of Kiev. He always takes a selfie in front of the sign of the city. And so Elensky decided to visit Kharkov, was ordered to visit Kharkov, and he took a selfie of himself in front of the Kharkov sign. And I've said many times that the Elensky curse does not only cover people, it doesn't only affect people. The Elensky curse also affects locations. The Elensky curse carries over to geography as well. And every town or village or city that Elensky visits eventually falls, eventually is captured by Russia. Or at least every place where Elensky, or most every place where Elensky takes a selfie with the location sign behind him, that's bad news. That's the Elensky curse in action. So not looking good for Kharkov. But Elensky, he traveled to Kharkov with ABC News. And I think we now know why Blinken ordered Elensky, in my opinion, I believe, ordered Elensky to stay in Ukraine and to cancel his trip to Spain. I think we now know why. My guess, just a guess, my guess is that Blinken told Elensky, cancel your trip to Spain. We are going to arrange for ABC News to travel with you to Kharkiv so you can show that you're on the ground in Kharkiv, improve the morale of not only the Ukraine military by showing that you're in Kharkiv with the troops, but to also show to our collective West partners and allies. I can see Blinken telling him this, to also show to our partners and allies / vassals that everything is under control. So we're going to send ABC News with you to Kharkov. We're going to do this puff piece interview and cancel your trip to Spain. Now we know why the trip was called off, because Blinken and his team, they arranged this entire news segment, because it is a video news interview, and this reporting, this piece in ABC News, they arranged for all of this to happen in Kharkov. So ABC News, they put out a post with the title, "The World's Fault. Elensky speaks out amid Russian assault." ABC News spoke exclusively with the Ukrainian president. Kharkiv, Ukraine. The situation in Ukraine is so serious that President Volodymyr Elensky had to cancel a planned trip to Spain and come straight to Kharkiv, the country's second largest city, which is again in real danger from the Russian advance. With exclusive access, that's key, with exclusive access arranged by by Blinken and co. ABC News joined Elensky on a tour of a hospital in the city with Elensky, where he met soldiers injured in the northern defense and presented them with medals of valor. It's really important for me to be here, he told us as we walked the corridors. ABC News then asked Elensky about what's happening in Kharkov, the fact that all of this collapse is happening in Kharkov and that there is a Russian advance. ABC News then asked Elensky, is it America's fault? That's what they asked Elensky. And Elensky said, actually, they asked Elensky, is it America's fault what's happening now in Kharkiv? So that's the question that they asked him. And Elensky said, it's the world's fault. They gave the opportunity for Putin to occupy, but now the world can help. It's the world's fault. Not America's fault, it's the world's fault. Look, Mr. ABC guy, world give me $300 billion. They say, build fortifications. I say, okay, I build fortifications. I have many homes around the world. I need to build walls. I need to put cameras. I build fortifications with some of these 300 billion. You see, Mr. ABC guy, they didn't tell me fortifications in Kharkov. They just say build fortifications. Take money, build fortifications. So I build. It's world's fault. It's not my fault. It is the world's fault. It's not America's fault because, well, you know, Blinken, he'd be upset if I say America's fault. It's the world's fault. Boy. ABC News then asked what he needs to improve the situation in Kharkov, and Elensky said, all we need are 2 Patriot systems. Russia will not be able to occupy Kharkiv if we have those. 2. It doesn't sound like a big ask, actually. It sounds pretty simple to do. If all he needs are 2 Patriot systems, I don't see why he's not getting just 2 Patriot systems. Though it doesn't sound like the 2 Patriot systems are going to stop the Russian operation or the Russian advance in that region, whatever the Russians are planning to do. I don't know how far the Russians are planning to go, how far the Russian military is going to move into the Kharkov region. But is it really just about 2 Patriot systems? Is that all that is needed? Because I imagine the U.S. must have 2 Patriot systems lying around somewhere that they could give to Elensky. Let's see, ABC then goes on to say, I told him many Americans are worried about how much money is being spent on Ukraine, and in this election year, it's going to be an issue that American voters pay attention to. Elensky said, that money is not given to Ukraine. It's money spent in American factories, creating American jobs, and we are not just fighting for our freedom. If not Ukraine, it would be another country. So all the money is not even going to Ukraine, Elensky said. It's not even for us. It's for America. Take the money and give it to America. You see? That's what Elensky is saying. Boy. Anyway, that was the interview from ABC News.
It's the fault of the world that the world gave possibility to Putin to occupy it on the country, and I think so. But now the world can help.
Do you feel that Secretary Blinken's visit went well? Did you get what you wanted?
There is one thing that the collective West still hasn't quite given the Elensky regime, and that is NATO troops. But that might be coming. According to the New York Times, as Russia advances, NATO considers sending trainers into Ukraine. The move could draw the United States and Europe more directly into the war. The Biden administration continues to say there will be no American troops on the ground. Yeah, well, the Biden White House said there were going to be no long-range missiles, there were going to be no ATACMS, there were going to be no F-16s. There were going to be no HIMARS. There were going to be no cluster munitions, no javelins and javelinas, and no tanks, and no striking at Russian territory, and our weapons wouldn't be used to hit Russia. And Blinken yesterday said that Ukraine can absolutely use U.S. weapons to hit Russia. So the Biden White House has said many things, and they have said consistently that there will be no U.S. boots on the ground. I'm not sure. Have they said no NATO boots on the ground? I don't know. I don't think they've said no NATO boots on the ground. But here we have the New York Times reporting that Ukraine has asked NATO to come into Ukraine and to train 150,000 new potential recruits. The argument is that by NATO coming into Ukraine and training the recruits closer to the front line, it would mean that those recruits are more quickly sent to the front. NATO can come in with their trainers, train the troops, and then the troops can quickly go to the front. So that is the ask from Ukraine, according to the New York Times. So I think we all know how this goes, right? Ukraine's going to ask again and again. Eventually, some countries in NATO are going to say yes. I think some countries have said yes. France would say yes or has said yes. Lithuania, the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, they have said yes or will say yes. And once those countries start to go to Ukraine, or at least once the U.S. will then give its blessing to those countries to go to Ukraine to train troops. Once the ball starts to get rolling there, eventually U.S. trainers will be in Ukraine, and then the U.S. military. Because Russia's going to target those trainers. I imagine Russia would target those trainers. So this is how we escalate towards World War III. And Politico, they put out an article with the title, Top NATO Commander, Russia's Offensive Won't Succeed. General Christoforou said Russia lacks the skill and capability to take advantage of any breakthrough. Russia's ongoing offensive in Ukraine doesn't have the legs for a breakthrough, NATO's Supreme Allied Commander for Europe said Thursday. I know the Russians don't have the numbers necessary to do a strategic breakthrough, Cavoli told reporters after a meeting of the alliance's defense chiefs at NATO headquarters in Brussels. They don't have the skill and the capability to do it, to operate at the scale necessary to exploit any breakthrough to strategic advantage, said the U.S. general, but added they do have the ability to make local advances, and they have done some of that. Cavoli's assessment comes from very close contact with our Ukrainian colleagues, and I'm confident that they will hold the line, he added. It's quite a statement from Cavoli, huh? The Russian military lacks the skill. They lack the skill. Wow. So in a way, Cavoli is saying, you know what? We could send NATO troops to Ukraine because we could definitely hold the line against Russia, because Russia, they just don't have the skill to advance. They don't have the skill to advance against Ukraine military. If we train more Ukrainian troops, then they definitely won't have the skill to advance. And if Russia has to face our mighty and powerful NATO military, well then Russia will definitely not be able to advance. Right, Cavoli? Right. Yesterday we had a huge drone strike that Ukraine launched towards Sevastopol and 2-3 other regions. Hundreds of drones From what I understand, hundreds of drones were taken down by Russian air defenses, but some drones did get through. And for example, in Sevastopol, a couple of drones did damage an energy facility. And I believe today there will be some power outages in Sevastopol as they fix this energy facility. So Ukraine continues to target Crimea. They continue to be hyper-focused on hitting Crimea. Try and hold the line. It seems like the strategy now is try and hold the line as best they can in Ukraine on the front line. Hold the line as best you can. Continue to send ATACMS and drones into Crimea. Attack Sevastopol, attack the Kerch Bridge, because when you do these things, it pumps up the morale of the collective West, and you hold tight until eventually you can get those trainers into Ukraine, and then eventually those trainers, which are a tripwire, will lead to the troops. It looks like that is the overall, the big picture strategy of Ukraine and of the collective West of NATO. Because if you do send troops into Ukraine, American troops, European troops, I imagine the citizens of the collective West countries are going to flip out. They're not going to like it, but who knows? Maybe they won't flip out. Maybe they won't protest. They probably will not protest. I don't know. I guess we're gonna see when we get there what is going to happen when Biden announces that U.S. boots on the ground will go to Ukraine. If we get there, maybe we won't get there, but if we get there and Biden has to tell the American people today as U.S. president, I am sending 2,000 U.S. troops to Ukraine or 5,000 U.S. troops to Ukraine. I wonder what the reaction is going to be. I don't know. Let's change topics now and talk about the port in Gaza that has been built. It has finally been built, and the port, the pier, whatever you want to call it, that allegedly is going to accept humanitarian aid and food. It has been completed, and me being here in Cyprus, the media here in Cyprus, the mainstream media in Cyprus, is talking about how 2 ships have already left ports in Cyprus, a UK ship and a US ship that left from the port of Larnaca, and they are already on their way to this pier in Gaza to deliver humanitarian aid. This is what the Cyprus media is saying. A UK ship of nearly 100 tons of aid has left Cyprus bound for a new temporary pier in Gaza, the British Foreign Office said in a statement on Wednesday. Meanwhile, U.S. Army vessel USAV James Looks departed from Larnaca port on the same day with its own shipment of humanitarian assistance. So I've done videos in Larnaca where I've been very, very close to the port. Yeah, 5-minute drive to the big port where these ships are leaving from, carrying humanitarian aid. That's what the mainstream media is telling us. So we have a situation brewing in New Caledonia, and from what I understand, in New Caledonia, which is a French colony, can you call it that? Is that a correct assessment to make? in New Caledonia, which is in the Pacific, a Pacific Ocean archipelago, South Pacific Ocean archipelago, controlled by France. The French government, or the French parliament, they passed a law the other day where they said that anybody living in New Caledonia for up to 10 years is eligible to vote or something like that. And the locals in New Caledonia, they did not like this law. The Kanak people in New Caledonia, they rebelled against this law because they feel that this will marginalize them. Not to mention that this law was passed by the French in France without considering the local people's point of view. And so there was a kind of uprising. And now France had to send troops to New Caledonia in order to put down the uprising. But now France is accusing Azerbaijan and indirectly Russia for causing these riots. According to Politico, France accuses Azerbaijan of fomenting deadly riots in overseas territory, New Caledonia. Days of clashes between demonstrators and police in French-controlled New Caledonia are fueled by foreign interference, Paris declared on Thursday, as local officials vowed to restore order in the South Pacific territory. French Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin said that the violence, which has claimed the lives of 3 indigenous Kanak people and a police officer, had been actively supported by Azerbaijan. So France is upset, or they're blaming Azerbaijan for meddling in New Caledonia. I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that is going on. I don't know how Azerbaijan is doing this, or why Azerbaijan would do this. But that's what France is saying. France is upset that another country is meddling in their colony, on their territory, which is thousands and thousands of miles away from France proper. They get upset when people meddle in their colonies. They get very upset when people meddle in their colonies. Oh, boy. Azerbaijan Foreign Ministry spokesman Akan Hajizada strongly rejected claims the country was behind the unrest. Instead of accusing Azerbaijan of allegedly supporting pro-independence protests in New Caledonia, the Minister of the Interior of France should focus on his country's failed policy towards the overseas territories that led to such protests, he said. Yeah. Spot on. So I wonder if France is going to use this tension with Azerbaijan to create more tension between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We'll see. Anyway, that's the situation in New Caledonia. And let's do a couple of clown worlds. How am I doing on time here? Yeah, we got to wrap up this video. Wow. So, quick clown worlds. In Warsaw, it looks like the mayor of Warsaw will be making it illegal, prohibited, I don't want to say illegal, to place crosses or Christian religious symbols in town hall. Yeah, that's happening in Poland. The mayor of Warsaw signed an ordinance regarding standards of equal treatment in the capital city hall. This is an internal document and applies to people working in the city hall. It specifies, among other things, a ban on displaying religious symbols on desks or walls and obliges employees to use equality language. There is only one religion that is allowed in the European Union. Only one religion. And it's not Christianity. It's not Catholicism. It's not Christianity. It's not Islam. It's not Buddhism. It's none of that stuff. It's none of that stuff. There's only one religion that the EU allows or will allow going forward. And one final clown world. We are getting reports, I can't confirm this, but we are getting reports that Trump is considering Mike Pompeo and Tom Cotton for a top national security position if he is elected president. Oh, boy. Trump. Always hiring the neocons. If this is to be believed, well then, I've said it many times, he has a soft spot, a weakness for the neocons. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop. Use the code GETREADY15 for 15% off all Duran merch, or most Duran merchandise. Take care.